Joining us for more on the increasing need for foster parents is Kristen Candle, the recruitment specialist for the Sarasota YMCA Safe Children Coalition, Catherine Shea, president and CEO of the Florida Center for Early Childhood. She also chairs the Community Alliance of Sarasota County, and Nathan Scott, a child welfare systems advocate with the Family Safety Alliance. And thank you for being here tonight. And let's begin with this awful video and photos that we've been seeing from around the nation. It was a Wisconsin couple suspected of overdosing in a car with their grandchild, actually the woman's grandchild, in the back seat. And this made national news. The child has been removed from the woman's custody. She was sentenced actually just today to 180 days in jail after fighting to gain custody of this child. The child has now been taken to family members, I believe, in North or South Carolina, and that really kind of puts really a finger on what the problem is, not only across the country, but especially here on the Suncoast, because it seems that as bad as it is elsewhere, it's even worse here.
Well, I would say absolutely. Yes.
Could you just, all of you, tell us about the incredible increase in the need for foster families in our area?
Sure. Alan, let me start with some numbers just to put it into perspective. So in Sarasota, Manatee, and DeSoto County, we're serving 1,489 kids total. 915 of those children are in out-of-home care, with 320 of those children in foster care, and we only have 248 licensed foster beds in those three counties. So it's a definite need for foster homes.
How long has this been going on for?
Well, I'd say that we have some statistics that in 2013 we were removing about 20 to 40 children in a month. In 2015, just last year, and continuing into 2016, we've been removing as many as 40 up to 75 children a month.
Now here's the million-dollar question. As the number of kids being removed and going into foster care, how has your resources increased to handle that?
Well, our resources have not increased at all. I think the system is extremely strained. And it crosses all systems. I think that's what people need to understand, that when you have the little ones, the babies, and our agency has many of the children in the foster care system that we're treating in our preschool program, in our mental health department and infant mental health, you are absolutely draining the resources. And when you have a traumatized child, and that child will be traumatized, maybe for life, you have got to pour a lot of resources into the foster parents. They need tremendous support caring for some of these children who, if they've been prenatally exposed to drugs, and they probably have, many of them have significant behavioral challenges. So we're not coming close to having the resources that we need as a system to affect this.
Personal note, my parents took into a foster child, actually, you know, a cousin of mine, and I could tell you firsthand what happens when they are infants and toddlers hardwires them, and there are certain things that happen that you never get away from.
Yes.
There seems to be two elements here in terms of the need for financial resources for these organizations, but also the need for foster families. And how easy has that been to come by?
It's been very difficult. So the need for homes has been increased, but the amount of people coming forward to foster has not increased, unfortunately. So we're actually looking to bring attention to this issue so that we can bring those people forward, people who have a heart for children and have a heart for community service as well, because they're taking care of our children in our community. And
I would imagine there is difficulty with that, because you desperately need the people to come forward, but you need the right people to come forward, because you know, on the flip side, we heard from time to time terrible stories about what happens to kids in foster care.
Certainly. Yeah, we're not cutting any corners as far as who we allow to foster. So that is one thing that the public can feel very good about.
Right. When you have reached out to both the state and federal government in terms of needs to fund these organizations and get the resources to the children, what too often has been the result?
Well, I think we live in a particularly challenging state that's becoming more and more conservative. We just held our Community Alliance Legislative Summit today, and heard some really pretty depressing news from our speaker, who was the United Way Suncoast CEO, of some of the comments that Senator Negron, who's going to be the House Speaker, has made even before session begins, and that is that he doesn't believe in soft services, and he considers mental health and substance abuse and in-home prevention services as soft services. That's the climate that we're living in.
All right, we're going to jump into that in great detail in our next segment, but we have to take a quick break. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the increasing need for foster parents with our roundtable. Kristen Candle is the recruitment specialist for the Sarasota YMCA Children Coalition. Catherine Shea is president and CEO of the Florida Center for Early Childhood. She also chairs the Community Alliance of Sarasota County. And Nathan Scott is a child welfare systems advocate with the Family Safety Alliance. And Catherine, you yourself were a foster parent who wound up adopting the child. What was the circumstance, if you could tell us about, and how did it work out, and what kind of, challenges did you face?
Well, this was 1989, and we were living in Albany, New York, and that's the time of the crack epidemic in New York City, and our little guy was born at Harlem Hospital, and they were actually putting out a call in a 150-mile radius for foster parents because the babies were sleeping in cribs in the DCF offices. That's how bad it got. They ran out of foster homes, they ran out of kinship homes, and they had nowhere for the babies. So I worked for a nonprofit agency in Albany, and we said we would take this on, and probably half of the employees said we'll do the foster parenting, but it's only temporary. And so we got our little guy at 4.5 months. He had been in the NICU the entire time, diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome and some other substances, but primarily fetal alcohol syndrome. And we fell in love with him. I mean, he was, very delayed in development, very flat affect from not really having stimulation and attention, but within a really short period of time, he was, babbling and, looking at us with smiles on his face. And so I'm an infant mental health specialist, so we fell in love, and it still took us 4 years to get him freed for adoption. He's now 27. He's got developmental disabilities that's a result of the fetal alcohol syndrome, but he is one amazing guy. He's very funny. He's so compassionate. He loves to dance and sing, and he wants to come here and assist in being a weatherman. I was supposed to tell you that.
Bob.
He's a really good weather guy.
Nathan, you have even more statistics showing just how acute this problem is right here, right now.
I do. I actually just recently got the final statistics for Narcan administration in Manatee County for July of 2016, and they administered over 700 doses of Narcan, which is 157% approximately increase from last July, and last July was the highest they'd ever seen of Narcan administration.
I know that local law enforcement got grants and got donations that allowed them to have the supply of Narcan. That's not going to last forever, and I know that the Sheriff Knight here in Sarasota County has said that he will keep getting this so that deputies have that supply on them when they respond to these situations. Let's get down to it here. Money does not solve all problems, but it does solve some. And, Kristen, what exactly do these social service agencies need in terms of funding, and how specific, what would it go to?
Certainly. It could go to quite a few things. So it could go directly to services for our children. It could go to services for the parents who are trying to fight these addictions. And we all know that this is something that is not cured very easily and not right away. So it could go for things like that. For our children specifically, I mean, we take care of things as simple as an after-school activity, band lessons, something like that. So there is a very human perspective to this too.
But Catherine, I was frankly blown away by something that you told the Bradenton Herald when they came out and talked to you a couple of weeks ago. We are in Florida the 7th friendliest state for personal and corporate taxes in the country, but we are 49th when it comes to funding social services like mental health.
That's correct.
You are part of a coalition that is talking to our state legislators right now.
Yes.
and you made reference to it before, Senator Negron, who's the incoming Senate president, I believe.
Yes.
What are you being told?
Well, that's the message that we sort of heard today, and I think that's the political climate that we are living in Florida, and that it is becoming more and more conservative. The other comment that Senator Negron said is that government should not be taking care of these people or paying for it, that charities should. Well, I run a nonprofit organization, and charities can't do this. We don't, I don't know what the plan is, that we're supposed to go get, all these donors that want to give us money so we can do this. But I believe that government does have a role in helping with the social problems that we have. And if we don't get on a better path, then we can't just take care of food and health. It's Maslow's hierarchy, and if we don't raise people up, that is not going to help the economy in the state of Florida. It's not going to help anything here. It's a very bad plan.
But this is not strictly a partisan matter, because I've seen Republicans and Democrats, say that they are aware that this is a problem around the country. I've seen headlines for Buchanan trying to get more federal funding for it, although I believe the Congress voted it down.
That's correct.
But there are obviously, people on both sides of the aisle who are concerned about this.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There are people who are watching this broadcast right now who may be sympathetic to the plight of these kids, but people are tired of increasing government spending. You mentioned a little bit in terms of what are the ramifications for our community if when these kids grow up and they do not have a good upbringing.
Certainly. We know foster care is a generational cycle too. So if we don't take care of this now and build healthy children who can grow up to be healthy, functioning adults, we're going to continue to have this problem.
I saw another statistic that DCF spends about $28.76 per capita on substance abuse and mental health. Only about $4 more than it spent in the year 2000, 16 years later. Could you describe kind of the efforts that have been going on to lobby the state legislature, and aside from Senator Negron, what kind of response have you gotten?
Well, I think there's been mixed response, and certainly from our local delegation members, we had a lot of advocates really fighting for substance abuse and mental health funding last session in particular. But it comes down to the bottom line of the budget and going with the side of the political party. I think we've made some headway. I think we have some really good relationships with our local delegation members as a result of the Community Alliance. I'm in Tallahassee, and so is the group, lobbying a lot and advocating and meeting with our delegation members both here at home and in Tallahassee. And I think, they'll say they get it, and when I said that statistic last year at the legislative breakfast, they were shocked. And I said, you need to really look at the corporations in terms of revenue and the taxes that they pay. It is a really small slice of the pie in revenue. And we have some corporations like SeaWorld that pay no corporate taxes at all. And they've had one of the highest profit seasons in the past 2 years ever. So I think it's time to tax Shamu.
And then every once in a while we have a terrible tragedy. I'm thinking of Chance Walsh,
yes,
or the child in Manatee County, who was found in the freezer,
yes.
And we hear that all the criticism of DCF, and that it's not doing its job. It's that people get outraged that a child could be killed in this situation. But it does not result in, and then there, I believe the governor called for, I think, $20 million more in terms of funding, but it's temporary. It doesn't last long. And it doesn't seem, from what you're saying, that even given the crisis right now, that anything is really changing.
Well, and I think that that's a good point, Alan, that DCF does get a lot of negative press, and so I'm glad that we're able to come here and provide this information, because I can tell you from my experience that caseworkers and child protective investigators really want to do a good job. They want to protect kids.
But what are they up against in terms of their workload and their caseload?
Their caseloads are high right now. And that's probably a result of the amount of children coming into care. And then there were 85 removals in this circuit in August of 2016, and it's just hard to keep up. It's a tough job.
All right, why don't we take a break there? Welcome back. We are discussing the increasing demand for foster parents in our area tied to the heroin epidemic. And Kristen, if people are watching this tonight and want to help, how do they?
Sure. We'd love to have them reach out to us. Two ways. They can give us a call. We have a local toll-free number, but it's handled locally. And we also have our website where you can go and you can submit an inquiry to us that will come to us through email, and we will get connected with you. We do have information meetings coming up. We have one coming up on the 27th of September. No pressure. People just come out, ask their questions, learn about it, and we can get them started.
And what would happen after that?
Sure. So they would fill out a packet of paperwork telling about their family, their background, why they would like to foster. We take a look at that. If they're a great match for fostering, we get them started with some classes.
And Catherine, is it possible to say how long does the typical foster parent have a child in their home?
Oh, I don't think there's a real typical average. One of the things we've started in Sarasota in the past year is what we call early childhood court. And those are for infants to 3-year-olds. And so we're doing great with that, trying to get them in and get services in place and achieve permanency in a really short period of time, which has been less than 7 months, Nathan?
We're averaging about 117 days, or 117
Yes,
days
well
to
below.
permanency,
Yeah.
which is well below. We have about 12 months to find a child permanency.
And Nathan, could you tell us how you help get a lot of these different organizations together and work with them?
Absolutely. We have what we call the Family Safety Alliance here in Circuit 12.